Hey guys, Martin here bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so as the anniversary gets closer and closer and the hype continues to grow, we're going to talk about today all of the EZAs that we can expect during the anniversary. There is a little bit of mystery surrounding the final units, which we will talk about when we get towards the end of the video. But for this video, we're going to go over all of the EZAs that we get during the anniversary. Of course, every one of these that has their own Extreme Z battle, for like the summonable characters, I will be doing team building guides for those, and as always they will go up the evening before the EZA comes out, so keep an eye out for those if you want to see the guides for the EZAs. But we are going to cover every EZA of the 9th anniversary that we know about, because of course you never know what could happen for global, especially at the end. But yeah, these EZAs are generally all very good. I guess the free-to-play ones, you know, you have to keep in mind they are free-to-play units, but in terms of the summonable units, I don't think there was a single bad EZA from the 9th anniversary. Even the ones that we would consider the worst ones are still pretty good. So the 9th anniversary was great for strong EZAs. A lot of good stuff to look forward to for the global anniversary. So make sure you guys hit that like button if you enjoy the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are on the road to 30k subs. The 30k Mortals plan, really want to hit that before the end of the anniversary. That would be awesome. So if you are new around these parts, do subscribe, like the video, check out all the links in the description, join the Discord, become part of the Ningen Club community. But yeah, let's just jump straight in. So this free-to-play physical Gogeta is the anniversary login card. So when the anniversary begins properly on Sunday morning, which for me, it can be late Saturday evening for you guys, depending on where you are, if you're in the US or other time zones. We don't get this guy with his EZA available straight away, of course. He just drops as this normal base SSR that can be awakened into... Actually, I think he drops as a TUR already, because he's already just a level 120. He doesn't have an unawakened version. So he drops as a TUR. You get a copy of him as soon as you log in and once the anniversary's begun, and then you'll get extra copies from missions, and then he gets his Extreme Z awakening in part 2 of the anniversary. So he won't be EZA'd straight away, but bear in mind that he is going to get an EZA. And they do give you enough copies once you've done all the missions to get all his paths open, get him to SA10, and have a spare SA5 copy, I believe. But base Gogeta does have a farmable super attack as well, so you can get those extra copies sorted if you want to farm those extra ones. But this guy gets an EZA. Now, he's the free-to-play login card that everybody is going to get, that you don't have to do a huge amount of work for, right? So he's not insane, but you know, he's got some interesting abilities. His super attack effect is to greatly raise attack and defense for 1 turn, which is good. Supreme damage to the enemy, and then he gets dodge chance 19% after supering. 19% is a very odd number, but I guess it's because it's got a 9 in it, right, for the 9th anniversary. Then he gets attack and defense 99%, additional attack and defense 19% per key sphere obtained, so he is a nuking style unit. Additional attack and defense 9% when attacking per key sphere obtained if there is a superheroes or movie heroes ally in the same turn. Attacks effective against all types if you pick up 5 orbs, guaranteed crit if you pick up 9 orbs. So it's definitely not terrible on paper, right? On a movie heroes rotation, he is getting 28% attack and defense per key sphere obtained. So if you can get a decent amount of orbs, unfortunately he is not an orb changer himself, but for a free-to-play unit, the login card that everybody's going to get, he's certainly not terrible. I guess there could be some instances against int bosses where he could be useful, although I suppose in the current meta, before we start getting all the anniversary content, the toughest int boss in the game is of course Kid Buu, who would absolutely murder this guy if he's not dodging, right? So for this guy, I would say you probably just want to go for a full dodge build with a little bit of additional, because I believe the way this works is if he gets an additional super, he does get an additional 19% chance. So this becomes a 38% chance to dodge after supering. So full dodge, bit of additional so he gets another greatly raised would be good, because of course if you're getting enough orbs he gets guaranteed crits anyway. But yeah, not bad for a free login card. Then of course we have the LR Beerus, the good old pajamas Beerus. You can farm his SSR straight away from the beginning of the anniversary, but he doesn't get his EZA until part 2. Once he gets his EZA, he does actually become a very solid character. He's on a lot of good categories, including being on super bosses. But he's an interesting card because he has the sort of standby sort of thing, but it's not a standby, right? Where he can't attack. He has a lot of defense, has a lot of damage reduction. He starts to lose damage reduction each turn, but then once you get to turn 5, you use his active skill, which is then he wakes up, targets all the attacks onto him for 1 turn, and then of course once he's used that and woken up, I guess, he gets a bunch of extra damage reduction. He's drawn all the attacks onto him. He tanks all those hits ideally, and then you start being able to attack. He's a pretty good free-to-play LR. I'm not sure if he's on the level of like when Roshi released in the 6th anniversary, he was just instantly hands down the best free-to-play unit. But I feel like this guy has a decent shot at being considered the best free-to-play unit, like once he does get his EZA, because he certainly can be very good. I've seen clips of people using him in difficult content. He does greatly lower attack on the 18 key super, which is something that is a lot more relevant nowadays with some of these tough bosses being able to be attack lowered. Unfortunately, his 18 key is an unarmed super, because I was going to say he would be decent against Kid Buu if he could actually greatly lower Kid Buu's attack, which he can't. But he would still be fairly good as a defensive option against Kid Buu, I suppose. But yeah, this guy, very, very good as the free-to-play anniversary LR. Pajamas Beerus. We actually get a Beerus with a different name. So yeah, he's very solid. Then we have the free-to-play farmable Frieza. Now again, this guy will be farmable straight away from the beginning of the anniversary, but only the SSR. Then he gets his awakening a little bit later and then gets the EZA in part 2. And once he's EZA'd, he's basically just your run-of-the-mill free-to-play unit. He does have greatly raised attack and defense on super, which is decent. He gives super bosses, allies 2 key and 30% support. He gets an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super when HP is 50% or more, as well as an additional super when facing 2 or more enemies. He gets extra attack and defense and has a scouter ability when there's a pure Saiyans or movie heroes category enemy, which pretty much does apply to like all of the anniversary content. So he's a nice little free-to-play unit to throw into some of these teams. You just have to be aware, of course, that being a free-to-play unit, he's not going to be taking these big attacks from some of the big bosses very well. But he does kind of counteract that a little bit by having a scouter. So you can put him like where the super attack isn't. And hopefully he will be a decent enough option for some of those. He's still not going to be tanking. Like if you have to put him in a slot against like, you know, the toughest event in the game, like Blue Gogeta or Beast Gohan, by the time we get to the end of the anniversary, and he's having to go in a slot where there's like 5 normal attacks, then he's probably still going to get crushed. But as a free-to-play unit, he's certainly not terrible. And the fact that he gives a little bit of support for super bosses is nice. Probably as another full dodge option, right? Any free-to-play, like, floating support unit, you're probably just going to want to go full dodge. The rest in additional, so you could get a potential extra greatly raise. But yeah, he could be okay as a free-to-play unit. He's certainly not anything special, but not completely terrible. Then we start moving on to the summonable unit EZAs. So the first one that we get, which will be not as soon as the anniversary comes out, but it is, I believe, just before part 2 actually starts and the part 2 banners come out, is the LR, Broly, Chilai, and Lemo, the LR Broly trio. These guys get a very, very good EZA. They become an absolutely fantastic unit for the super bosses team, or movie bosses. They are a very good EZA. So their super attacks greatly raise attack and defense on the 12 key. They also greatly lower attack. And then their ultra super is massively raise attack and defense for 1 turn, which is a 100% buff. They're a nuking style unit. They get 30% attack and defense per key sphere obtained. They get an extra 10% per physical orb obtained. Then they get 2 extra key per key sphere obtained as well. All allies 2 key and 39% attack if you get AGL or STR orbs. All allies 2 key and 39% defense if you get tech or int orbs. And then all allies 2 key and attack and defense 15% with a rainbow orb. So if you get a rainbow orb with AGL, STR or tech and int, you're giving 4 key and then 15% to one of these stats. And then, 54% to the other one. So if you get Rainbow and then Int or Tech, you're giving 54% defense to everyone on the rotation, 15% attack, 4 key. You get an additional 39% attack when performing a super. They launch a guaranteed additional super attack and give movie bosses or super bosses characters 10% damage reduction when key is 24, which, considering they get extra key per key sphere obtained, and then 4 key for all allies if you're picking up the certain orbs. Very, very easy for them to get 24 key. So they're giving their allies damage reduction on these teams, getting an additional super, which is then, of course, another greatly raise on their defense. Then they have a high chance to dodge, just built in general anyway, and then guaranteed dodge if you get 7 or more orbs, which is always one of their original abilities, which is, of course, very powerful. They do change orbs of a certain type, physical excluded, to physical when HP is 60% or less, and change all orbs to physical once only when HP is 39% or less, which is definitely very, very good. And with the characters that we have on the Super Bosses team now, like the physical physical Goku Black, creating rainbow orbs, like these guys, it can be very easy with these guys to get 7 orbs, which means they have a 100% chance to dodge and give a ridiculous amount of support to everybody else on the rotation. A rotation of these guys and physical Goku Black is really, really good because they share links like Fierce Battle and, most importantly, Big Bad Bosses. And then Rosé's creating rainbow orbs makes it very easy for these guys to get 7 orbs. Then they just go in slot 1, dodge every single attack. They're giving support, which means they're giving physical Goku Black extra defense and attack and damage reduction. So this EZA is absolutely fantastic and a massive buff for the Super Bosses team. Then we get 2 EZAs that come out at the same time as them that are sub-EZAs. We get Int Broly and Paragus. They EZA with the medals from the AGL Wrathful Broly EZA. So those can be pre-farmed early if you want to do that. These guys, unfortunately, are let down by Paragus being in the card, basically, because they only get the categories Pure Saiyans and Joined Forces. So no movie bosses, like no other categories that they would be on if it was just Broly, which is a little bit annoying. But, I mean, they are good for what they are. It's just, unfortunately, their team options are limited. They infinitely stack defense on Super and they lower attack. They have 150% attack and defense, high chance to launch an additional when performing a super, damage reduction of 26% with each super performed within the same turn, Pure Saiyans or Joined Forces allies, 3 key, attack and defense 50%, 3 key, attack 180%, and a high chance to launch another additional super when there's a Pure Saiyans or Superheroes category enemy. So again, this is like most of the anniversary content. And because they get 26% with each super attack performed, if you can actually get like the God turn where you get this high chance of an additional super becomes a super, you get this high chance of another super when a Pure Saiyan or superhero enemy, and then you get their hidden potential additional, so 4 supers in one turn, then they have 104% damage reduction. So they don't take them well. They take double digits because you can't take 0 damage, but they take double digit damage from everything, which is crazy. Now, obviously, you're going to get turns where they get 1 super and then 1 or 2 additional normals, and then they're only going to have 26% damage reduction. They are stacking defense, but they don't build up super quickly, so they could still be a liability potentially. But of course, even if they're just getting an additional normal and then you're fighting a Pure Saiyan or superhero, but they get just another additional normal, you are still getting extra chances that they proc the hidden potential. That could just be an additional normal as well, but you will see turns where they get like super normal, and then additional super from the hidden potential system, which puts them at 52% damage reduction. And obviously they're stacking defense. So they could be so much better if they'd actually put this unit on Super Bosses and made their support and everything for Super Bosses, as well as Pure Saiyans and Joined Forces. I feel like they would actually be a good option to run on that team. But sadly, it's only Pure Saiyans or Joined Forces. They don't fit into a lot of team builds. I don't think they even have that many 200% leaders, which is unfortunate. And it's all because of the way Dokkan does categories and because Paragus is on the card, which is unfortunate. So this is what I mean when I said at the beginning, like, even if you considered these guys the worst EZA of the anniversary, they're still good. They're just kind of stuck in a bit of an awkward spot, which is a shame. And then we have the STR, Bardock and Gine. These 3 EZAs basically all come out at the same time. STR, Bardock and Gine, they EZA with the medals from the Mars Saiyan EZA, so they are pre-farmable already as well. And these guys could certainly be interesting. They massively raise attack and defense 1 turn, do supreme damage, and they raise all allies attack and defense 22% for 2 turns. So if you're using them as just like a floating 3rd slot character, they are buffing all the units on the next turn with their super attack effect. They get attack and defense 122%, Key 4 and an additional attack and defense 122 and recover 22% HP if HP is 50% or less from the start of the turn once only, when there is an ally whose name includes Goku on the team. Additional attack and defense 122 when attacking, when there is another bond of parent and child ally in the same turn, which is fairly easy to do with the units you'd be running them with and their link partners. They get an additional attack 122 when there's a movie boss enemy, and an additional key 4 attack 122 and a guaranteed crit when there's an enemy whose name includes Frieza. So these guys would be really good in the Legendary Frieza event, I guess, which isn't a particularly difficult event, right? There's also Red Zone Golden Frieza, be interesting to try these guys out in. So they can be interesting. They get a lot of stats on Super, so they're not like obviously a slot 1 unit. But of course they do have the interesting active skill, which has been one of these units like strengths since their original release. Removes all ally status effects, which can actually be very useful in some of these events now with locking and sealing and stuff. Raise all allies attack by 22% for 2 turns, which is the multiplicative buff. So even though it's only 22%, that can work out to be a lot of extra damage because it's the entire rotation and it's for 2 turns. So when you use the active skill, even if they're then in slot 3, it's everybody on that turn and everybody on the next turn. And it can be activated when HP is 80% or less starting from the 4th turn. So turn 4 is a good condition. 80% or less can be a little bit awkward at times, but these guys are pretty good. Their post-super defense, they can easily get up to around 1 million. If they're getting an additional, it would obviously be more. They're buffing all allies on the next rotation, buffing all allies with their active skill. So again, just like Broly and Paragus, these guys might not be super crazy, but their EZA is certainly good, certainly a solid EZA. They're just kind of in a bit of a tough spot in terms of like where you're running them on which team builds and stuff, but they are definitely very good. It is a shame that, just like with Paragus being on the card, Gine being on the card, I'm pretty sure is why, locks this unit out of being on low-class warriors, which is a shame because they'd be a good unit to run with like the AGL Bardock to make him a little bit better. But still a very solid unit, good EZA. We'll be trying them out, of course. Then we move on to some of the EZAs that come out in part 2. And a big one here is the physical LR Blue Boys, Blue Kaioken Goku, Blue Evolution Vegeta, sometimes referred to as Evo Ken by the community. These guys' EZA is very, very good. They massively raise attack and defense in 1 turn on their 18 key super, as well as greatly lowering attack and defense. And then their 12 key is still greatly raise attack and defense and lowers attack, like the normal attack lower. Their passive is 4 key attack and defense 170%, randomly change key spheres of a certain type to rainbow when there's another superhero ally on the team, so it doesn't have to be on the rotation. Very easy condition to fulfill with them, especially when you're going to likely be running them with other like God or Blue or UI like characters, right? So very easy to get. They get an additional 2 key per rainbow orb, which they create. Then they get an additional attack and defense 7% per key sphere obtained. They get crit chance of 7%, damage reduction of 7%, and an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super per key sphere obtained. They can only do up to 3 additional attacks, but obviously if you're able to pick up 4 or 5 rainbow orbs, that's still giving them the extra 7% crit chance and damage reduction. So on average, if we just say we're getting the 3 orbs, that gives them the 3 additional attacks. They're getting 21% crit chance and 21% damage reduction, while massively raising defense on the 18 key. And then those additional attacks have a high chance to become a super, which then greatly raises their defense. Then you can get the hidden potential additional as well. Plus you get an additional attack and defense 70% when key is 18 or more, which is very easy to get with all the extra key they get from the rainbow orbs. They get a guaranteed crit when key is 24, which again is not too hard to get with their orb changing. And then when HP is 50% or less once only, they get damage reduction of 70% when attacking. So once they've then done their attacks for the turn, depending on how many rainbow orbs you've picked up, if we go by the 3 again as the average, they'd have 91% damage reduction after attacking on that turn. So very, very good. And then they also have an active skill, which gives them key 24. So obviously that activates the fact they're going to get guaranteed crits. Attack 70% and defense minus 50%. Now the defense buff is obviously a bit of a risk, but depending on the turn, you can of course get a bunch of damage reduction. Their active skill can be activated when HP is 50% or less. So once that happens, you're getting this 70% damage reduction on attack. So if you use the active skill on that same turn, as long as they're not in slot 1 or getting hit by an AoE, they're then going to get this massive buff and potentially have 91% or even 98, or if you, because getting 5 rainbow orbs is very difficult, but if you do get 5 rainbow orbs, they would have over 100% damage reduction. But on that turn where you're using their active skill, whilst the defense lowering can feel like a liability, you're potentially then going to have 91% damage reduction as well. So even though they've lowered their defense, they're then raising it with all their super attack effects, and they have an insanely high damage reduction. So these guys are really good. These guys absolutely mincemeat Kid Buu. So if you're someone who's still struggling with the Int Kid Buu Power Beyond Super Saiyan mission, these guys go absolutely crazy against him. And then, of course, we have the final 2 LR EZAs in like part 2, which is the AGL UI Goku and the Blue Evolution Vegeta. These guys become crazy good as well. Greatly raised attack for 1 turn, colossal damage to the enemy, high chance to crit, which stacks. So if he gets 2 supers, he has a 100% chance to crit. He raises allies crit chance by 7% for 1 turn. And then the 18 key is massively raised, mega colossal, high chance to crit, raises all allies crit chance 7% for 2 turns. So if you're getting the additional guaranteed crit, as well as giving it allies 14% crit chance. He has key 7, evades enemies attacks for 1 turn upon entering. So literally on his first turn, he has a 100% chance to dodge. Attack and defense 200%, additional 77% when HP is 77% or more. Chance to launch an additional super and chance to dodge plus 77%. An additional chance of evading 7% within the same turn for each attack evaded. An additional 2 key up to 10 and defense 30 up to 150 for each attack evaded. Then he gets an additional attack 77% and a crit when activating the active skill or when key is 24. So they did that to, I think, make up for the fact that the active skills didn't really hit that hard for these guys. So that helps them a lot. If HP is 77% or less at the start of the turn, you can get the revival, when then revives of HP 77% recovered when the character or an ally in the turn is KO'd. And then once you've revived, or anyone else has revived, which of course is the much better way of having these abilities, key 7 and attack and defense 77%, evades enemy attacks for 1 turn after the revival. So it has to be his revival. But if you do get his revival, on the next turn he has a 100% chance to dodge. And then the active skill is greatly raise attack temporarily and does ultimate damage to the enemy when HP is 50% or more starting from turn 4. So UI Goku is just absolutely crazy post EZA. Very, very good. And then Blue Evolution Vegeta. I mean, Truth posted a screenshot recently of this guy doing like a 40 million attack stat super. He's greatly raising defense on his 12 key. Colossal damage has the high chance to crit as well as the ally crit chance. Then greatly raise attack and defense on the 18 key as well as the crit chance and ally crit chance. Key 7 guards all attacks for 1 turn upon entering, so guaranteed guard on turn 1. Attack and defense 200%, reduce damage reduction by 50%, and then get additional damage reduction of 10% within the turn with each attack evaded each attack received or evaded. So if he gets hit or dodges, he gets 10% damage reduction, only up to 30%, so that will put him up to 80% after he's been hit or dodged 3 times. Key 3 up to 10, attack and defense 30 up to 120 with each attack performed. Launch an additional attack with a 77 chance to become a super. Additional attack 77 and a crit when activating the active skill or key 24. At the start of the attacking turn, after he receives an attack 5 or more times, he then has his revival. And then it's him or any ally, the good revival. And then, of course, key 7, attack and defense 77% if anyone has revived, just like Goku. And then he guards all attacks within the next turn if his revival is used. So Goku gets a guaranteed dodge on turn 1 and on the turn after he revives. Vegeta gets guard, but going along with his damage reduction and all the defense raising on super, he might not be the best slot 1 unit, but after supering and everything, he's going to be very, very tanky. And then his active skill, the final explosion, which can hit all enemies, 50% or more HP starting from turn 4 again. And of course it gets a guaranteed crit because of the way the new passives work. So UI and Blue Evolution are very, very good, very strong. A lot of people were saying that this guy was like number 2 in the game just after Beast when the anniversary was coming to a close on JP. So very excited for these guys. The Universe 7 team, of course, getting an insane amount of buffs this anniversary. We had the STR UI Goku EZA already. And then the final EZAs kind of remain a mystery if there will be any more, because the final EZAs of the JP anniversary were these guys, which Global got early for Golden Week. So these guys will not be the EZAs for the end of the anniversary. And hopefully Global will get something Global exclusive or Global first. Last time this happened during an anniversary where Global had gotten the thing that JP got, already, we ended up getting the Tech Full Power Super Saiyan 4 Goku EZA as a global first. So maybe we will get something early or even as a global first at the end of this anniversary. Let me know what you guys think it might be. I have a theory and I'm going to make a separate video about it. But let me know what you guys think it might be, and I'll include some of those ideas and give shout outs in the video where I go over my theory. So let me know what you guys think about these EZAs for the anniversary. Which one, if you have to pick one, is the one that you're most looking forward to? Let me know down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out all the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.